For this project, I am sewing McCalls printed pattern 7554 on Mrs. Robe. I hope you enjoy this project. It was definitely the most challenging of all projects I've yet done, but here's the process. For the first step, I laid out the pattern pieces and ironed each piece, making sure that they would be ready to lie flat for tracing. Then I traced each pattern piece onto parchment paper one by one, just so I wouldn't damage any of the pattern pieces. Then I cut out each piece. It does take a while, but I think it's worth it to preserve the pattern pieces as best as possible. So then I always fold up the original pieces and put those back into their envelope for safekeeping. How do you store your patterns? That might be something you can put down in the comments. So after I have all the pieces cut out, I'm starting with the pockets here. I've gotten actually pretty comfortable doing pockets now because I've done them a few times. So I just iron the little piece here, the edge, because I'm going to actually be flipping this on the opposite way, as you'll see in a minute. So I iron this small piece, and then I turn the pocket over and I'm gonna stitch the sides. Some people, they don't iron this at all, but I like to iron at least the edges because I feel like it stays together better when I go to sew it. And of course, pinning as always. So I take it to my machine and just stitch up these sides right here at the top of the pocket. All right, now I flipped it over, reversed that part that I had just stitched together, and I'm able to go ahead and fold in the sides of the pocket. So it'll be ready to attach. So I press and pin those. People usually don't sew them down until they sew them directly onto the garment, but I really like sewing it down first, so that's what I did here, and I don't mind the look of double stitching. So having sewn the sides down, I decided, well, it would be nice to add a contrasting piece of fabric. So I had some of this left over from the last blouse I made and decided to add an edge onto the pocket pieces for just a little decoration. So I pin those on and I stitch it on. Alright, so now the placement of the pockets. I used the pattern piece to mark a little dot so that I could easily find where the pocket needs to go on each panel. And I pinned that down so I can stitch it on. This also is a little different. Usually I would sew both of the sides to the back before putting on the pockets, but this had me do them directly onto the side panel pieces first, which actually made it a bit easier. Alright, now I'm working on the darts. So I use a pen to find the top of the dart. I picked up this little trick somewhere. And I draw on the darts. I actually had to redo one panel because I had drawn it on the same side as the pocket, and it has to be underneath so you don't see it. But thank goodness these are washable pens. As soon as they hit the water, immediately they disappear. Makes you think how important math really is. And precision. So now it's time to fold the dart. At first, making darts was really hard, but now I'm getting more comfortable because, again, I've done it a few times. My darts aren't perfect yet, but I do get better every time I practice it. I can poke the pen through and double check on the other side to make sure that I'm getting it exactly where it's supposed to go. Then I just take it to my machine and stitch it right on. Also, it's better to tie off than backstitch on your dart points. I also picked up this tip somewhere. So I always do that now, instead of backstitching at the tip. Alright, now I'm working on the interfacing. This interfacing, though, has not worked well for me. It doesn't stick to the fabric. So I ended up just stitching it on, which was a pain, but from now on I'll probably go with sew-on interfacing instead of using the press-on, because this one just didn't go well for me. So I've got it stitched on here. Now it's time to sew the back to the two side panels. This process is pretty straightforward. I've got it pinned together for accuracy. Now, having finished sewing the sides, I'm going to go ahead and finish the seams of the sides by doing this zigzag stitch. And although it's not extremely neat, it is going to keep those seams from continuously fraying. You can see what it looks like here. Alright, time to move on to the sleeves. The sleeves were quite challenging because they're in 2 pieces instead of 1, and mine certainly didn't come out perfect, but it was my first time doing this style of sleeve and a great experience. So I did my best to pin them together so that I could stitch them down the sides. I was to stitch along the outer arm seam and the inner arm seam. And again, I'm going to finish those seams, having stitched up the sides. Not the neatest work, but it will keep it from fraying. Alright, time to hem the sleeves. This too wasn't my best work, but it does get better every time I do it. Alright, sleeves are ready. Now to attach them to the shirt, and then to attach the collar. So here I'm pinning the back of the collar to the front facings. And I'm going to stitch them together and then on the robe. Having done that, it's time to turn over the front facing to hide the inner facing that is inside. I don't want that showing, so I'm going to cover it up. On to the collar. I decided to do also the top of the collar to be this other fabric print and the under collar to be the red print. Give it just a little extra pizzazz. So I prepped the collar, which is getting easier every time I do that. I attached the collar. Now it's time to put on the buttons. So I measured, putting them about 6 inches apart, 5 buttons, and I just went with white. Now on to the belt. I decided also to make the belt in this other print for added decoration. I ironed the edges down and then ironed it in half, pinned it, sewed it in place. And this is the finished product. Not perfect, but I'm quite pleased with it. Here it is on me. You can wear it with or without the belt. Thanks for watching.